as well as the chief whip. What is happening, or what has been happening up until now, is that the leading opposition party in parliament, the one that has the greater numbers, chooses who the leader of opposition is. Some members of parliament say this is not democratic, and one of the epitomes of democracy is to elect those who represent you at the top level, and in this case, the opposition MPs say they should have a say. If they can elect the president after 5 years, they elect the speaker, why not the leader of opposition? Is it a case of trying to clip the powers or the wings of Joel Senyonyi and indeed the National Unity Platform? That is up for debate. But this morning, I'm joined by George Musesi, a lawyer who is going to be helping us with very, very insightful perspective on exactly where we are heading in as far as the latest development in the political landscape is concerned. Many thanks for joining us.
Pleasure to be here. Good morning to our viewers and good morning, Chris. Good.
The regional sitting in Parliament is where this whole new cup of coffee that has a storm in it was brought to the table by MP Lumu. And, well, many will be talking about the fact that it is timely. Others are convinced this is the latest in a series of attempts by the National Resistance Movement to basically dismantle the opposition to a point of no recognition at all. Are you the right person for me to ask this question? Is that true?
I am the right person because I'm a Ugandan. And you know, there was a court ruling where Justice Kakuru described who an average Ugandan is. One who owns a bicycle and has a mobile phone. So I think I fit the bill of an average Ugandan.
All right. I was, of course, referring in line to the fact that you are a leaning National Unity Platform Uganda.
That's true. And of course, even people who are leaning on NRM-DP, NUP, they all have opinions. Yeah.
All right. So what do you make of the latest development?
Of course, this morning I want to lean more on the law than on...
Okay. Perfect.
Yes, I want to lean more on the law. I think the latest development is a sad one, given what we've been going through as a country. First of all, Mr. Honorable Lumu, my friend, is well within his rights to bring a private member's bill. But first we need to understand how multipartyism works. Of course, I know Uganda runs a multi-party system and some bit of a presidential system, but multipartyism runs on the essence, one, that the party that sponsors you when you become president, when you become a member of parliament, councillor, has some mandate over you.
That's right.
In fact, there was a Supreme Court judgment in this country where I think the NRM was trying to throw out members of parliament, Honorable Nsereko, Tinka Similesi Chikubo. And the Supreme Court said that in a multi-party system, one, the first thing is the law. What does the law or the national interest lie? The second is where does my party's interest lie?
That's right.
Then the third is where does you. So you as a person, your party's interests are above you or your personal interests.
That's right.
That's why people run as independents, because you don't want to be hinged onto anything. But if you decide to run on a party, there should be some control over you. And that's how multipartyism works, all over.
Okay.
Secondly, multipartyism works by a majority party forming government. And then the party which has got the second majority in terms of the runner-up forms what we call the official opposition. And that's what our lawmakers had in mind when they were amending the Constitution and the Administration of Parliament Act in 2005 when we went to multipartyism. And it has worked smoothly because, you know, when we're going to make laws, when we're going to make amendments, one of the first things we address is what defect am I trying to cure? What problem has arisen?
That's right.
What gap has arisen that I would want to cure by an amendment? And that's the first question we would ask Mr. Lumu. What gap has he seen? What defect? Because since we went into multipartyism in 2006, the FDC was the majority then.
That's right.
It formed the majority official position, and it has always incorporated even people from minority parties. Even now, in 2021 when the National Platform is the majority party in opposition, it does, and it is even up to today, incorporating people from even minority parties.
That's right.
People have one of the official the functions of a leader of opposition is to keep government in check and offer alternative views. The alternative views don't necessarily have to, they're supposed to come from the party, the official opposition. You may try to get consensus from other parties, but in fact, let's give an example. If in Parliament you have NUP, we have JEMA, we have DP, you have UPC who are in opposition. All these parties have different views on particular subjects. And it's not necessarily true that you have to get consensus on all of them. So the issue is, what is the defect that you're trying to cure? So it is in fact a warped sense of democracy, and I've had it in your introduction, and I heard it from Mr. Lumu, saying that, you know, everyone is elected, even the Pope is elected. It would be a simplistic understanding of democracy to think that democracy only means elections. If you are to push that to the extreme, it would mean that a prime minister who is leader of government business should be elected by the people he or she's leading.
Members of parliament.
It would mean that in committees of parliament, they have to elect their chairperson. Yet right now they are designated by the parties.
Are you suggesting that Mr. Lumu's attempt is the latest bastardization of politics?
Certainly, because if you have to look at the context. Let me give you an example. You talked about the regional sittings. When Mr. Sechikubo on day one attempted to bring the issue of the debate on his motion,
that's right,
the speaker shut him down and said that, no, this sitting is for regional issues. You leave your Kampala nonsense when you go back to the Kampala house. So the second day, Mr. Lumu is presenting, so was this one of the regional problems, the local problems? And then you just have to look at the context of how this parliament has been operating. It's not the first time they ganged up on a minister, Namuganza, to throw her out on very, very specific issues. So if you look at the context, you would not be so far from the truth by saying that this is the latest attempt. So I want to end by that, Chris, that it's wrong. It's even illogical to think that democracy means that we have to elect. Because by the time every point, because then it would mean that even the ruling party, they elect their chief whip. Then they elect their leader of government business. Then MPs, why should the chairperson of a committee be someone you've not elected? If you are to talk democracy to the way Mr. Lumu wants us to interpret it, that if your person should be subjected to a vote. Secondly, by the time you become the official position, it's not by appointment. The FDC since 2006 has been the biggest opposition party.
There's a lot of work that goes into campaigning and winning a vote.
The runner-up votes in the general elections. So there's been a process. It's not by appointment that there's no illogical way in which you've come up to this.
All right. Shortly we shall be looking at exactly what the design of this particular election will be. But Mrs. C, allow me welcome Mukasa Mbide. You're looking good.
Thank you.
And welcome. Mukasa Mbide is the Deputy Vice President of the Democratic Party.
Yes.
You're most welcome.
Thank you.
The developments in the country, the very latest, shows that the opposition, of which the Democratic Party is an integral part, is again under attack, so to speak. The idea is that maybe a certain section of the opposition has grown wings too large, and that is making some people uncomfortable. But that is speculation. What do you make of Mr. Lumu's attempt?
Yes, these are extremely exciting times. Honorable Lumu comes from the Democratic Party.
That's right.
But certainly his bill isn't coming from the Democratic Party. I have looked at his submissions also, just like my colleague here on TV. The motion was supported by a member of the NUP, seeking to, among others, establish a process where the leader of opposition, as we know him or her in Uganda, is elected when I looked at such, I said, what is this? What is going on? Now, when you look at the law, I have missed the submissions of my colleague, but I am sure he must have taken you to the very source, what we call the falsity origo, the very origin of the position of leadership of opposition. Because it was the subject of a constitutional amendment that was emerging from, of course, the freedom of political parties in 2005. The amendment took place in 2006 and established a constitutional provision of Article 82, capital A. Now, that article is extremely succinct. Now, this is where we have a problem. It is succinct on election of a leader of opposition. Now, there are two major things that we really look at. What is lawful and what is legitimate. What is lawful is not necessarily what shall be legitimate. In Uganda's case, for example, if we establish an election at the Parliament of Uganda level of a leader of opposition, certainly you are going to emerge with a leader of opposition whose campaign has been either funded or even led by the ruling government. So clearly you won't have the objects for which that position was established in the laws of Uganda. Now that is the politics. But when you look at the law, now the basis of the enactment of the amendment, having been the constitutional provision of Article 82, capital A, it left out many things that ideally ought to have been addressed. And this is where the problem lies. One of them being, of course, constitutional petition number 28 of 2006. Probably it hadn't been decided by the time the amendment took place. That was Jacob Olanya versus Attorney General, which clearly gave a decision that numerical strength is regarded discriminatorily. Now, but that is the basis on which, obviously, a party with the biggest numerical strength under the provisions of the Act establishes the leader of opposition. Whether that should be done by way of consultation with other parties was made optional under the amendment. So you either consult the other parties or not. So whether there is a coalition of the opposition or not, who exactly is established as a leader of opposition is a leader of opposition. But you know there is no party called the opposition.
Of course.
So then we have got also to look at the Constitution. What does it say? The Constitution of the Republic of Uganda gives its own principles. Consent to be governed. Now, in the event that the law has given leeway that you can come up with the leadership without consultation, what then happens to the consent to be governed by other smaller parties? But of course there are other provisions of party whip, this whip, and so, but what are we doing? We are now looking at an axe cutting a tree. The tree cries not because of the iron axe itself, but because of the wood handle. It is imagining that actually you who actually is part of me is being used to cut me.
Okay.
Because this is something that we have to look at. So we are looking at the politics. Number two, the nature of our own leadership in Uganda. Because ours is not for example, it is not a parliamentary system of administration. Now, in the event that we have got a presidential system of administration, what is the, and you establish a position of not a minority leader, but a leader of opposition. Because a leader of opposition under a Westminster, for example, system of administration is a prime minister in waiting.
He's the alternative leader of government.
He's just waiting.
Yeah.
But here you have got a fellow who is actually not in waiting, but leading somebody in parliament, leading the whole opposition in parliament. So the process for which he is established and his position is put in, because he is actually at a level not of a prime minister even, but of a minister, cabinet minister.
Okay.
Now, that means we are establishing things that actually don't make a lot of sense.
There's a lot of contradictions,
yes.
a lot of back and forth, and we seem to be legislating ourselves too much.
Of course, and wrongly, because we do copy and paste without actually copying properly, or even pasting properly. It is like a madman throwing stones, and everything we hit, we call it the target. Now that is wrongful legislation, and it has to be addressed. However, now that you have got a presidential system, a kind of system where the winner takes everything, we imagine that the kind of politics obtaining in parliament is that of suffocation. So the position of leader of opposition is the venting process established there for the opposition to also vent their own disagreements. Now, if you again profanate and desecrate that same position, then what is left of the opposition? Because if it emerges that even a member of an independent political leader in parliament can also be elected a leader of opposition, of course in accordance to what is being proposed, because when you look at the Political Parties and Organizations Act, it is the party that wins a recently concluded election that forms government. Now anything else is opposition.
Let's be clear for purposes of a layman to follow very properly. Honorable Lumu seems to suggest that after the election is done and parliament is constituted, the leading party in the opposition must present candidates, and then the choice is made from those, if I get it. It's not that he wants every party to bring a candidate and then an election is conducted. For example, a scenario would come where Noop has 47, Jema has 1, but Jema provides this candidate as one to lead the opposition.
That is if he believes that actually independents are not members of the opposition, which actually they are. So which party, I mean, because every independent obviously is not a member of the ruling government.
Is not, of
and
course.
is not covered under the Political Parties and Organizations Act. And we don't have a law that regulates independent political leaders in Uganda. They obtain their power and force right from Chapter 4 of the Constitution of Uganda. So I can tell you that we really, I don't know why they are not doing things that are supposed to be urgently done.
All right.
And think about things that actually...
They are measuring in minors.
Yes.
Interestingly, George Musisi, listening to Honorable Mukasambide, also presents a whole new set of problems for a moderator like me, because Mr. Lumu doesn't seem to be addressing a current gap or a problem that we are faced. But we also do understand, if your submission is anything to go by, that there are inherent inconsistencies within the current framework to allow for smooth operation of the leader of opposition, to the extent that there is not a lot of contestation of the process. When we come back from the break, I need you to take us through the politics, because it seems it's the politics here that is being rolled out. We shall yes, as a man who has an eye, or you have a vantage point with the National Unity Platform, is it a case of a party that has become too strong for the rest of us and there is need for the clipping of wings to begin? That is a submission that I'll be expecting from you, not that you're being put on the spot for being a National Unity Platform gentleman. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. We're glad you're still with us here on Morning at NTV. It's the Kickstarter, and we are discussing the latest development in the country's political space. MP is seeking to go and put together a piece of legislation that will change the election of leader of opposition. Not election, that's a wrong word to use. The position from appointment to election. Before we went for the break, I was asking Council George Musisi on whether the politics of the day is finally out. Is the National Unity Platform growing a little bit too strong for the political class and there is need to clip its wings? Maybe it's a wrong question, but let's assume it's a right one.
It's not a matter of growing too strong or otherwise. It's a matter of people doing politics through using the law to do bad politics.
Okay.
Like I told you, you just have to look at the context of this, especially the 11th Parliament, how it has handled business. Because we've seen some otherwise personal fights, bickerings, coming to the floor and even receiving the stamp of legislation.
That's right.
I can cite two examples when the Honorable Namuganza was being censured by Parliament. You saw that was almost mob justice. Parliament even had to sit on a Monday morning in order to evict, because the people had read that that is the mind of the leadership, the mind of the speaker wants this person out. So you find people going all out to see that they catch the eye of the speaker. In Luganda, it's called Kuirao Mobili. They want to catch the eye of the speaker, that the speaker can see that I'm one of the warriors. And you see it many times in debate. The same happened when the Honorable Francis Zake, the Katuntu Committee had recommended that he should apologize. When the report of the Rules Committee was brought to the floor, someone said, no, actually, instead of apologizing, we should amend it to read he should be evicted from the receipt of the commission. In fact, that one even received the judicial pronouncement, and the Constitutional Court said what was so urgent that the speaker couldn't wait for, because the deputy then couldn't wait for her boss to come while she's presiding over a matter where she had a personal interest, because she was a complainant. So we've seen that over time, and unfortunately our brother Honorable Urumu, my friend, is caught up in this, what Honorable Mukasa described as the axe being used to cut down a tree. It's caught up all in the politics. If you look at, I earlier told you that when we are going to amend the law, the first question always is, what defect have we seen that we are trying to cure? It's true, like Honorable Mukasambida said, that our system purges up so many things, from picked a bit from the parliamentary system, from the unitary presidential, to come up, because of course it was we are coming under multipartism after a very long time, and they amended the Administration of Parliament Act. In fact, if you read the Administration of Parliament Act, when they were trying to incorporate the law onto the Parliamentary Commission after we are going to multipartism, they make the law almost parallel to the lead of government business in terms of the Administration of Parliament Act. So in fact, if you are saying that this one should be elected, because it's the parallel position this side is lead of government business,
you're also creating the narrative that the other one should also be elected.
It's wrong to say that the only defect we've seen is that democracy is not exercised. And I'm saying that that is a very narrow perception of democracy. Because democracy doesn't mean that each and every position should be elected for. And my brother is seeing it narrowly. And that's why I'm saying it's the politics. Since we went into multipartism in 2006, and we've had the majority party forming the lead of opposition, sometimes with consensus from others, sometimes with consultation, not necessarily consensus, and even bringing in some people on board. There has been actually no problem. Problem has arisen with the 11th Parliament when we are having a leader of opposition who is leading an opposition where some people are aligned with government.
To the governing party.
It's not by default that you are seeing Michael Kakembo, who is an estranged member of NUP. It's not by default. It's not by default.
Okay.
So, and I give you an example where the speaker had guided that we're discussing Guru issues, Northern Uganda issues.
That's right.
But then the following day you are attributing. In fact, the second issue why we're even talking about, ordinarily or ideally, when a private member is seeking leave, it's always a good practice to even bring a draft of the draft provision that you are going to
some makeshift,
some sort of idea to show what you're up to.
Yes, because now what he even said when he was being given leave, he has already moved away, because he was saying, why should members of opposition be led by someone we didn't vote for? Let us assume they did. And there are people who have problems with the speaker now, members of parliament, wasn't the speaker voted for. So it's even narrow-minded in terms of perception to think that if I vote for Chris, I will never have a problem with him.
In other words, you're saying
even a person you voted for,
the vote or election won't solve whatever problem.
Certainly, that's not the problem of saying that, because even there are people who have a problem with the speaker, but they voted and it's unanimous that she's the speaker and they have a deputy speaker. That's right. So we have to look at the context that we were, especially in the recent past, that we're having an opposition of 100 members, but where there's a group which is aligned either to government or to the leadership, and then we have a leader of opposition today who possibly is seen as being antagonistic to the leadership of parliament. And that is, so these amendments are trying to solve a Joel Senyonyi problem. Okay. And that would be a very narrow of legislation to legislate targeting an individual. I'm
glad you say solving a Joel Senyonyi problem, but I wouldn't classify it as a Joel Senyonyi problem, but a national unity platform problem, especially ahead of 2026, where if the national unity platform gets the advantage of increasing its numbers in parliament, then that presents a whole set of problems for the governing party.
But then again, Mr. Honorable Lumu should be focusing, as an opposition party, should be focusing on taking power. He shouldn't be focusing on who is going to lead us in opposition for the next 20 years.
In the dynamics of races, you must understand that maybe he's a pacemaker. But let's try to read the mind of the speaker, Anita Among, and the troubles that she has faced over the last 3 months. Let's look at the controversy and the problem that became the taking of the 1.7 billion by the commissioners. It was most pronounced by Matthias Impuga, and it is within that period of time that the National Unity Platform saw it fit to exercise a mandate that it has as a party to change the leader of opposition. Do we see Anita Among basically trying to realign what she thinks is getting out of hand in as far as her authority is concerned?
What I have witnessed over time is that every speaker has a style of administration.
That's right.
Or maladministration, but whichever. The style of the former speaker was calculated in such a way that she had persons both on opposition and NRM that she believes would vent independent opinion on a matter.
You mean former Speaker Kadaga?
Yes, the former Speaker. She would, for example, know that when you now get Katundu to speak last, on the opposition, that would be now some material that we are capable of listening to as advisory on the part of the government. But then when you would also get government people like Sechikubo, then you know that if there are still any remnants of indecision, then Sechikubo will also vent out. During that time, even Nsereko was also NRM, of course, before he became independent. But she had her own dichotomy of parliament in such a way that you have got extremists on either part, and you must give them time to also speak for purposes that then they would now govern and give you a clear debate on an issue that is before you for determination.
That is
now the current speaker, on the other hand, believes on running parliament as a flock. It must be unidirectional. So, and it must take the direction of her own preferences. Now, if the preferences are that the NRM government must have to be served without questioning, then that must be the direction the flock must take. Now, that alone brings out contradictions in such a way that if you are seen, so she holds parliament like a pendulum swing, swinging it from absolutism to democracy, from democracy back to absolute dictatorship. And if you, instead of clinging on to the swing, if you begin gazing upwards, you fall off. Now, there are those that started with her but have fallen off, and there are those that are now beginning to cling on. And that alone also now informs you that if you have got a problem, then definitely we know where it will end. If it is a position you hold of authority, that position also now will be followed to the logical conclusion that you will have to lose it ultimately. Now, what does it, because I was beginning to suggest that I think we need in Parliament a bipartisan approach to that issue. Because this type of law had also emerged in the 10th Parliament under Honorable Segona. But how was it silenced? Because the law can pass. And like my brother said, it is not a question of the law at all. It is a question of the politics. If you want to have a leader of opposition elected, then there must every loser of a presidential election that comes second must be a member of parliament. Because when it happened, of course, there are elections of leaders of opposition in Pakistan. But that is when they made the amendments to their constitution. I think that was the 18th amendment that obliterated the powers of the president. So they became Westminster model. Now, when a model is Westminster, you can elect as much as you want because the person you're putting in place is an alternative leader. Here we are establishing one, a listening post, two, a vetting process, generally. So you don't elect somebody from the independents and you expect NUP that was ranked second by the population in terms of leadership, in terms of manifesto, to vent its own opinions on how government should be governed through an independent political leader or a member from DP that came third, fourth, or 10th. So in my opinion, then, that politics doesn't make sense to me. It is both a rock and a hard place.
Would you buy the idea that the leading opposition party be given the chance to present a set of candidates from which to elect? Because at the end of the day, when I listened to the Honorable Olumo, he seemed to point to the fact that certain leaders' integrity and experience might not allow them to do the job well. And that if there is an option to elect or see option 1, 2, and 3, maybe you could end up with somebody who has more experience, integrity, and perhaps charisma.
My brother, considers even an unopposed election an election. So if that is what they want, then they can bring one candidate because you can also have an unopposed election. So you don't have to tell me to bring a list because then that alone now ceases to be an election.
Second, every member of parliament is eligible to be, for instance, a speaker. If you're a member of parliament, you can be elected.
You can be a speaker.
So then who determines experience, integrity for leader of opposition? Because if I'm a member of parliament in opposition, I'm eligible to be a leader of opposition. So if you're saying you are setting a secondary criteria of saying now we look at your integrity and track record, if we don't have that for a speaker of parliament, who presides over the house? Because even a one-term member of parliament who has senior 6 and is 18 years old, he or she can be the speaker under our laws today.
And our law actually gives details. A political party is a body corporate. For us lawyers, we have what we call the indoor management rule. Now, once the company secretary signs a contract with you, it does not matter. For me, I do not go along to investigate as to whether all the shareholders had agreed to the award of the contract. We know that that is indoor management.
Okay.
So, political parties are bodies corporate. If you believe that a political party conducts a primary election, and one candidate is presented for nomination, then how do you now present several persons, a requirement for presentation of several persons for election of leader of opposition, who actually I think should be minority leader in our respects, not the leader of opposition. Except if they amended the constitution of Uganda to include that whoever comes second in a presidential election automatically qualifies to be in parliament. Because for me, that is where now I think we can be able to solve the impasse, because then you have a leader of opposition who actually is a president in waiting. You know, we are thinking aloud. Our parliament needs to be thinking differently.
Okay. All right. Now, let me ask the hypothetical question in case the...
Maybe just before you ask on that very point, I think looking at the bigger picture, that should be the debate.
That should be the debate,
at. And I remember the very first election we held under multipartism, Honorable Kale Ganjuba, the late, wanted to bring that. He even wanted to resign his seat because he had won as shadowed or something MP.
That's right.
Such that Dr. Kizza Besigye could stand and come to Parliament and be the leader of opposition.
That would have been an episode in Uganda's politics.
Maybe that is the debate, because we've seen a number of issues in the past, and for me that's one of the problems I've seen, where you have a party leader who is strong, previously Dr. Kizza Besigye, Honorable Chagulanyi. They are strong, they are runners-up, but then they're not in Parliament, and they're appointing someone. And then if in case, of course, I know that, I earlier said that you have a mandate of your party, but however, when you stand on the floor, a member of Parliament, the degree of control, all those are issues that have arisen in the past. We've seen it before, even the previous leaders. So maybe that's the debate that should be taken forward. And for me, if Honorable Lumu had been taking us in that direction, that's a debate that should be carried. But clearly, he's taking us a direction of narrowing and decimating whatever principles that multipartism stands on.
And that leads to my hypothetical question. In case we reach the point where Honorable Lumu's piece of legislation sees light of day, what happens at that point in time? Do we see events happening, including the conditioning of an election, or it will be in the next term? I don't know who can answer that question. Honorable Mbide.
Well, we have rules.
Because that document, that draft, whatever it will be, will race through in terms of being passed.
If such a law affected the current leader, then it would, in my opinion, be retrospective.
It cannot affect.
It cannot happen.
It can.
It can only target the next leadership.
The next leadership, okay?
Because we have a principle, except, of course, obviously, the manner in which, by way of chicanery, it has been introduced. It can also apply it in retrospection, and we begin running to court.
Yes, Parliament.
But principally, it shouldn't apply to the current leader.
All right. This, of course, comes at a time when the opposition is already grappling with a lot of issues, unity and what appears to be fashionable franchising of political parties. We saw what's happened with the FDC, the dissolution, and the creation of PPF. When you look at what's happening within the opposition right now, well, the outsider might be very pensive. I don't know whether that is the kind of sentiment that engulfs you all when you see developments. Will we be having an opposition in 2 years' time? Let me begin with you.
Well, for me,
there seems to be a concerted effort to obliterate, in your own words.
Opposition will always be there. It is just a question of whether we shall continue to have political parties. Okay. Because you see, in Uganda, when you have authoritarian rule, it is foolhardy for anyone to believe that you can have political parties. What you have is a dichotomy of politics. Those for and those against. And you can see that even the rules don't definitely provide a fertile life ground for political parties to flourish. Because when you have got a political party of persons that believe that independent opinion is again sacrosanct, then you know that parties can't operate as much as possible in such an environment. But the principle of opposing the current status quo exists and continues to flourish. And all of those that will be the flag bearers of such a principle will continue to definitely grow in number. So, like my brothers here have got a political party. You can call it anything that you want. But for the population that will vote for them, they don't even know what a political party should look like. So whether you criticize them or not, in fact, even if you remove the leader of
neither do many who vote for the National Resistance Movement.
So, because even NRM itself, I don't know why they believe they are in government as a party. Because for me, I find that party on the opposition. Government is a different thing, and this party is different. It can never determine what happens.
Is it still a party? Is it an organization? Is it a movement?
It is a dogmatic cult.
Certainly.
But with a simplified and is a graspable catechism, and with President Museveni as the high priest celebrating the mass. So the catechists are several, and you will find them on all media stations. But what they are talking about is not clearly what determines what happens in government. Completely different. It is not possible that President Museveni is worried that on a certain date, SEC is going to sit and he's worried about what they will decide. The opposite is actually true. They are the ones worried how is the mood of Musei when they are going to sit. So you can't call that one a political party. The members are just a uniform. They are used they are just why? It is a clog.
That kind of insight or an understanding of the reality on the ground should be able to offer opposition players a clear way of moving ahead, unless otherwise they are not opposition, so to speak.
That is very true. I don't know why we don't work together.
Yeah, why don't you sit down? Because let me be very specific about the latest development, the formation of PFF. One would ask, what is our goal as the opposition in Uganda today? For long, it has been touted as dislodging the national resistance movement. Dislodging the national resistance movement requires to ensure President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni does not return as a president in an election. The opposition would be best suited to achieve that if they were one compact pack. But it is very convenient for opposition parties to see where the opportunity is in order to subdivide whatever set they've come up with. And it appears to be something that is working. Are we seeing career opposition politicians?
Of course, there are many people in opposition who are there conveniently to keep there.
Okay.
That is why I'm even disturbed by my brother, Honorable Lumu, who I think should be agitating towards making laws which ensure that the Democratic Party and all other opposition parties have a fair ground to go into government, to compete to go to government.
That's right.
But is agitating for laws to ensure that opposition remains in opposition. If you look at, first you asked Chris a little when you say that will there be opposition. It depends on how you look at opposition. Opposition is not the parties, neither is it the leadership. Secondly,
what is it?
Sentiment.
The sentiments and how people look.
And
yes, I agree. I agree with Honorable Mukasa when he says that in countries like ours, where I can say we have fragile democracies, to be kind in my words, we've not had multipartism operate the way it should operate. He has given an example of the NRM. We have ever had an ANC, an African National Congress, a party sitting to remove a sitting president.
Yes.
Yeah.
A sitting president, and the party says we are recalling you. And he gave a very good example that in this case, the highest decision-making organ of a party
is the one afraid.
Is the one, you remember when they had problems with the key challenger, Honorable Mama Mbabazi, and they started and said, now Secretary General is no longer to be elected. And they went as a flock and they amended the constitution because we had seen a Secretary General threatening. So, and then that has even been brought outside to their perceived enemies, the other opposition parties. They have not been allowed to operate the way they should operate. And this doesn't start with NOP, all the way since we went to multipartism. And they prefer a kind of cooperation where I think a Rwanda-like system, where all the parties are patronized by one person. That is why many times President Museveni keeps on saying, why shouldn't parties should operate under iPod? They prefer, because the Rwanda model is where even the other opposition parties are all patronized by, and that is not the way multipartism has been known to be working. So for me, I wouldn't be so, and then two, even when it comes to the general Ugandans, people are grappling with basics. In Uganda, we're talking about basics. Even when it talks about our chapter for rights, we're talking about basics. That when a person is detained, will they even be allowed to appear in court or not? So in such an environment, people don't pay so much attention to what either NRM or DP or what stands for, because they are struggling with everyday survival. And they think that this is either us or them. So in that case, there will always be people, and like it has been shown in the past, who feel dissatisfied, and there's a huge number of people, Ugandans, who are dissatisfied by this government. So I think it's healing the symptoms if you look at NUP as the problem, because NUP is just a symbol. Today, yesterday it was FDC. Tomorrow there will be another person where these people aggregate and think that they can pour their sentiments. So looking at decimating NUP, it's just a vehicle which can go away, and these people, the mass, will find another point.
All right, thank you very much, Councillor George Musisi, and many thanks to you, Honourable Mukasa Mbide. We're going for a break. When I return, we shall wrap this conversation up and then be able to hear from my man on the ground, Stephen Mbide. Do stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. I'm glad you're still with us. In studio this morning we have Honorable Mukasa Mbide. He's the Deputy Vice President of the Democratic Party. I also have with me Councillor George Musisi, who is very much aware of the machinations, so to speak, of Honorable Lumo in coming up with a piece of legislation that wants to see the leader of opposition elected in Parliament. We are fast running out of time, so I'm going to have to give the two gentlemen 4 minutes each to make their wrap and, of course, offer us what could be a way forward with regard to the latest development in Uganda's political space. Over to you, Councillor Musisi.
Well, in conclusion, I think the Constitution, Article 82A that my brother cited, makes the role of keeping government in check as this principal duty of the leader of opposition. So where you have, and we all know that elections in this country, especially those where there is a select group, so to say, an electoral college. Honorable Mukasa Mbide has been through 2 of them where Parliament elects ERA members. It's easily manipulatable by a stronger hand. In this case, the opposition in Parliament today, I think there are about 101 MPs. Just imagine if you had 101 MPs. You saw the other day we had the elections of all the MPs, and there was an invisible hand. Now imagine if you have 100 MPs here and you need only 51 of them to vote for you. It's very easy for government, this government which has not allowed opposition parties to thrive, to elect their own leader of opposition. And that is the essence. That is the extreme understanding of Mr. Lumo's proposal. Secondly, and lastly, we need to know that in multipartism, the reason why I choose to run under the banner of DP or NUP or FDC is because I believe in its values and coalition. I can choose to run as an independent if I don't want to be hinged onto any political affiliation. So the essence of multipartism is that a party should have a degree of control over you, a degree of control, and that has, I told you that even we had that contestation when the Sechiko was, it went to court, up to the Supreme Court, and said that, so it's not true, it shouldn't be that when you become a member of Parliament, or even LOP, you should have some degree of reporting such that you still represent the party's interests.
All right. Fred Mukasa Mbide.
Yeah, well, I think for me also, in addition to what my brother has said, of course we are now looking at whether we can obtain a bipartisan approach to, in terms of Parliament, for purposes of silencing that intended legislation that would in effect remove what has been the remnants of capacity by those opposing the administration system that exists to also vent their own opinions. Number 2, I do not know, you know, the subject of multipartism was due to, 1, a referendum and even court business, and it was a decision to abandon independent opinion so that we adopt multi-party political dispensation, where, of course, ideally, a system of governance can only evolve out of decisions taken by parties. Either Parliament thinks about enacting an independent political leaders act, or we delete independence, like it happened in Tanzania, because I don't find them, you know, who is an independent political leader in a multi-party political dispensation? Doesn't make sense. And if political parties definitely are to answer questions of leadership of the day for the people, they must be empowered than actually disempowered by such intended legislations. Yes.
All right, thank you very much, Honorable Fred Mukasa Mbite, the Deputy Vice President of the Democratic Party, and many thanks to you too. Vice
President.
Vice President, yes. My apologies. And of course, many thanks to you too, Councillor Fred Masisi, for the perspective. It's always a pleasure having you on board. Of course, what we do understand right now is that there has been some bit of opposition to this latest attempt by a Member of Parliament, but assurances have been made after one MP said the sittings, or rather the sitting in Gulu, was not meant to discuss matters other than issues affecting the region, and that the Member of Parliament should have waited for the MPs to return to Kampala, and then in the plenary of what we do know as the mainstream parliament, this issue would have come up. But the MP was effectively responded to by the Speaker, and I do quote, "The best that we can do if we are not in agreement with what the member has raised, we follow it up at a committee level, and if it fails at the committee level, then the House comes in for the second reading. But we do not have the mandate to deny a member of Parliament to seek leave." So that means Mr. Lumu will go ahead and, of course, draft this very controversial piece of legislation. My man on the ground, Stephen Mbide, is standing by. Good morning, Stephen.
Yes, good morning to you, Chris again. You know, here in Makerere University, Honorable Dr. Fred Mukasa Mbide was one of the student leaders as a guild president, and that's why I'm here to understand the views of the students on issues concerning our legislation in the parliament. I know for now that discussion we've been having about the proposed bill on having the leader of opposition, the government and the opposition chief whip being voted for by the majority, the members of parliament that subscribe to the opposition. Is it a good move? Is it a bad one? Let me hear the views of the students here in Makerere one by one before I get back to the studios. Let me engage this student here. Good morning.
Good morning, Chisa.
What's your name?
My name is Wawire Brian.
Wawire.
Yes.
We have this proposed bill that seeks to see that yes, the leader of opposition is voted for by the majority, by the members of parliament who subscribe to the opposition. Is the good one, is the bad one?
I think I would support the members of parliament electing the leader of opposition, because if he's elected by the majority, these other groups of, these other parties are not represented. I think there may be this thing of favorism from the other party, and yet it will be causing disunity between the members of parties, just in case the member makes a certain choice that these people are not going along with. But if that member is voted by all of them, they'll be able to make better decisions, and all of them will be satisfied because they all participated and were part of his election to the position. Yes, that is.
So you seem to be supporting the proposed bill?
I support the bill, 100%.
Thank you. Your name is?
My name is Wawire Brian at Makerere. I'm a student at Cobhams and a leader.
A leader. Which position is that?
I'm a representative of BICOM.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you intend also to go for higher positions?
Yes, I intend to go for a position of finance minister the next semester.
I wish you the best. Let me engage you. Hey, how are you?
I'm fine.
What's your name?
My name is Green Stanley.
Let me know about your views about this proposition.
So, my view, for me, I support it because when I look at the other side, when they involve the parliamentary members to vote by themselves, there is a view it gives. So when you put even the other oppositions, the opposition may vote because of some effects, but if they involve themselves, let me say that the actual party of those guys, so they have that view, that mind that you are voting the right person we are waiting the right person who shall help us in time to come.
So let me ask you, what's wrong with the current state, going with the status quo, having the party with the majority in-house, going by the leader voting the opposition leader? What's wrong with it?
So for me, I don't see any problem with it. But where the problem comes is when we involve the majority, so there is some effect, because now among the majority, not all of them will be in the same position. Others might be of the opposition. So when you put the guys of the opposition, they may not bring the other effect, maybe the real thing that the other people want, or the exact leader they want to choose.
Okay. I also want to engage some ladies here. Before that, let me engage you. How are you?
I'm okay.
What's your name?
My name is Katrega Cedric, Macquarie University. I'm a Bachelor of Commerce student.
Okay, let me understand your view about the proposition to have the leader of opposition being voted for by all members of parliament who subscribe to the opposition in parliament. Should we go with that, or should we remain with the status quo?
According to me, okay, it's over the fact that it's the leader of opposition. And when we observe, the leader of opposition does not only talk about one party, but all parties are involved, all engaged in the opposition. Therefore, according to me, I believe it should be done, okay, in the democratic way. It should be done by all opposition members. Because, okay, it might not be that party that there could be a member in the other party, but doesn't have the majority of the members. But this person could be having the potential, the capability to be the leader of opposition, unlike the current one, or the one that has been chosen. Yeah. So according to me, I think it should be done by all. Okay. Yeah, not only one party. Yeah.
Okay. Do you also aspire for any active position here in Makerere or even outside Makerere?
Not really.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much. Let me engage a lady here, please. Good morning. How are you?
I'm very fine.
What's your name?
My name is Akatukwasa Nyangoma. Yes.
We are talking about proposition to have the leader of opposition being voted for by all members of the opposition. And currently, we know that the party with the majority has the power to, the leader of that majority has the power to appoint the leader of opposition. Which way should we go?
I think the majority should vote. They should engage everyone to vote.
Why?
Because it gives freedom of speech to everyone. Everyone exercises their duty to outreview their points so that they can vote all of them, not the other side. Now some of them should vote, some of them should not.
But you know, currently we know that when the leader of opposition sits, has a government, has also the mandate to call all of them. Then they form a government which does not have members of his own party, but also his government has members of the opposition from other parties. So I want to understand, going by what we see now, is there anything wrong?
Yeah, at times. They are not, okay, they shouldn't make it the other way around. Only its government should vote, but they should involve all the people to vote so that they give freedom of speech to everyone to outreview their points. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much. Some of the views of the students, this is at Kwasa, right? Yeah. At Kwasa. Thank you so much, and the students here in Makerere. These are some of the views. I know this is still in the draft form. The Member of Parliament, that is Honorable Richard Rumu from Mityana South, already sought and got leave of parliament. We wait to see the details of what he plans to bring to the floor of parliament. But also I know there are critics who are saying that this should not be given even space, but we wait to see what happens, whether even the Speaker of Parliament will be able to give him that time on the floor of Parliament to introduce this bill, because already he's having his time out of Parliament to go and draft it well. I have now to hand you back to studio because I know it's still morning at NTV.
Stephen Mbide for bringing us up to speed with the thoughts and sentiment of students at the country's greatest institution of higher learning, Makerere University. Of course, it's always said that the opinion and the temperature at university usually is responsible for shaping the political leaders of the next generation. And of course, it's been a pleasure hearing some of the students there talk about what they know and feel about the position of leader of opposition, as controversial as it has become. We are fast approaching the top of the hour and entering the final bend of Morning at NTV this first day of September. We would like to use this opportunity to hammer about something that is happening across the country that you should take note of: the outbreak of Mpox. Mpox is a virus in the same family of viruses like smallpox that was eradicated over 40 years ago. It's originally transmitted largely through casual contact. Subsequently, in 2022, experts saw Mpox transmission begin to be driven by sexual contact. Now, what are the symptoms that you should be looking out for? Visible pustules, which are small boils on the skin. They can be anywhere, according to experts. The boils can be on one part of the body, but can also be spread all over within a very short period of time. It's often associated with very high fever, a swelling of lymph nodes, headache, and general body weakness. The boils or lesions on the skin may disappear within 2 or 3 weeks, but they leave scars. However, for people with a compromised immunity, it may result in extensive skin damage and tissue loss might be evident. So it's important that you take all the precaution that you can, especially if you see any of these symptoms beginning to manifest. We do hope the Ministry of Health is on top of matters. We do understand there is a response plan in as far as eradicating or halting the further outbreak going against or completely getting out of control is concerned. That will do it for this edition of Morning at NTV. It's been a pleasure having your company. We shall be catching you again tomorrow as we come on board to amplify the issues of the day, but most importantly, helping you make the very best possible decisions. I'm Chris Higenyi. Have yourselves a lovely day.